Welcome back, everyone. This is Dr. Seymour with the Optimal Response Initiative, ORI, coming to you each Friday to talk with you about stay alert, stay alive, and thrive. The training continues. So this week we are talking about sleep. Why is sleep so important? What is the point of sleep? And why am I always talking about how all areas of health are connected? And it is key and it is crucial that we recognize what we can do and then do what we can in regard to our health and our quality of life. Health is not just about physical health. Mental health is not just about mental health. And what is mental health? Is it just our thinking, the content and quality of our thoughts? Is it just our emotions? Is it how we manage all of this? How do we measure mental health? Well, I say we measure mental health in the same way that we assess physical health, cognitive health, emotional health, spiritual health, and social health. All of it is connected. So every area of your life you could consider an aspect of health. Sleep is the most important foundational thing that we can get a hold of. I have talked a long time about every area of health is connected, and we need to address all of them to get improvement in any of them because they are all connected. Sleep, often thought of as something to do with our physical health. It impacts our cardiovascular health. It impacts our energy levels, our ability to recover from injuries. For young children, sleep is crucially important for growth and development. Sleep is crucially important, period. So let's talk about the 3 S's of sleep this week. I'm going to break it down to the 3 S's, and these are a new 3 S's for you, military individuals. We're not going to talk about the other 3 S's. We're going to talk about how important it is to get a hold of what we say to ourselves about sleep. What are our beliefs about sleep? And do we sit still? Are we able to sit still? Are we able to recalibrate? Have you been practicing your breathing, recalibrating from high level of perceived stress to a more manageable level of perceived stress? Stress being a request for energy, and it is a part of day-to-day life. But how do we recalibrate from high levels of stress to a more manageable level of at rest? There's stress because it's a request for energy. Talking, breathing, existing is stress. It's a request for energy on the body. So we're trying to also get away from looking at stress as all negative, or there's good stress, there's bad stress. Stress is a request for energy, and how we think about ourselves, the situation, other people, the world, our thoughts and our beliefs, our opinions about our situation is going to then dictate and influence the level of stress that we experience, our perceived stress. So if we have high levels of perceived stress about sleep, if we have thoughts that I'm not going to be able to get a good night's sleep, I'm going to have that same nightmare that just repeats over and over again. I mean, I'm danged if I do and danged if I don't. Why even try? Sleep is for the weak. Wow, I'm really getting out of control with these thoughts, right? Well, the content and the quality of our thoughts, by the way, I don't believe all those things. I'm just giving some examples of thoughts we can have about sleep. The thoughts that we have really influence how much we're able to sleep and how well we're able to sleep. The thoughts that we have even influence an increased likelihood of a dream, whether it be a dream we want to have or a not so good dream or a nightmare. The content and the quality of our thoughts, what we say to ourselves, whether we say it out loud or we just have the conversation with ourselves in our mind. The conversation that we have with ourselves about sleep is going to determine our experience with sleep. whether we're able to go to sleep, how long we sleep, and what we dream about, or what we don't dream about, or what we dream about and don't remember. We can't control things when we go to sleep. We are not awake to help our brain direct our thoughts and file things where it would make sense when we're awake for them to go. When we are asleep, we are not consciously aware of everything the brain is doing or what we are doing. However, when we are awake, what we say to ourselves, this is the first S of sleep, what we say to ourselves, about our experience, about people, about our world, about our experience in the world, about our past experience and our current experience. What we say to ourselves influences our ability to rest and to go to sleep later. So we're focusing on the first S, which is say. What do we say to ourselves about ourselves and sleep? Think about that for a moment. What kind of thoughts, broken records or playlists, whatever era you grew up in playing music? Mine was cassette tapes. I played that Bryan Adams cassette tape over and over again. I don't remember the name of the album, but cassette tape. So whether it's a CD, a cassette, a playlist, MP3, whatever it is, what is the broken record, the broken list, or the continuing playlist of thoughts that you have about sleep? I hope I get a good night's sleep. I got to get a good night's sleep. Oh man, as soon as I go to sleep, I'm going to have a nightmare. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being tired. I can't stand being tired. I got to get some sleep, man. If I don't get some sleep, I'm going to be really mad. If I don't get some sleep, it's going to be a really bad day tomorrow. If I don't get some sleep, I am over this if I don't get some sleep. These are pretty less than optimal thoughts, right? But they are these automatic thoughts that we have that we say to ourselves about sleep. And what we say influences what we then experience with our sleep. So the first S is, what do we say to ourselves about sleep? Take some time to acknowledge what the broken record playlist might be that is going on in your mind. And if you want to, you can use the power of extremes to identify the exact opposite of the less than optimal statement that you've been saying about sleep. So if the thought has been, oh man, as soon as I go to sleep, I'm going to have a nightmare. Well, let's get a hold of that and say something different. Want for sleep is a decent dream or no dream. And I can't control whether I have a dream or not, but if I'm going to choose, I would like to dream about and think about what you'd like to dream about. Do you want to dream about your dream vacation? Do you want to dream about or visualize health in the body? Do you want to think about all the great memories in your life? Funny things, sunny days, good memories from summer vacations or whatever it might be. But what would you like to dream about? And no, there's no guarantee that's what you're going to dream about. But what you think about consistently is going to influence what you then possibly dream about. It is not a guarantee. There is no guarantee. But we can take the time to consider what we say to ourselves about sleep and say the opposite to ourselves or something more optimal to ourselves about it. So if I say, I'm danged if I do and danged if I don't with this dang sleep stuff, well, how about I say I'm doing what I to influence the quality of my sleep. And what I say to myself influences the quality of my sleep. So I'm choosing to say decent or optimal or kind things to myself about sleep, how I value sleep, how sleep influences my health, how when I sleep well, I feel better. Not super inspirational, but it is something I'm saying that is going towards optimal instead of letting the broken record playlist just sit on the worst, which then influences a greater likelihood of a worst sleep experience. What else are you saying to yourself about your sleep? I hate to go to sleep because as soon as I go to sleep, for example, I am working on going to sleep because I know sleep influences the quality of my health, and I care about the quality of my health, and so I care about the quality of my sleep. You could find quotes about sleep. You could find scripture about sleep. Whatever your beliefs are about sleep, assess them and consider how do you want to change them to increase the likelihood that what you're saying to yourself about sleep is going to increase the likelihood that your sleep is more enjoyable, improved, or more optimal. Sleep is a foundational area of health that influences all areas of health: physical, cognitive, our thoughts, emotional, spiritual, if that matters to you, social. I know that when I get a deep night's sleep, I have a better experience when I'm not only just around myself, but around people. I feel like I have more energy because I do emotionally and physically. And I want to be around and around people that I like to be around. And I want to do things that are enjoyable. More so when I've had a decent, if I've not had a good night's sleep, then I'm less likely to want to be around be around anybody else or do anything other than just suck it up and press on and deal with the suck it up and press on of lack of sleep. So, what are you saying to yourself about sleep? How do you want your sleep to be? And then start to speak to yourself about sleep in a more optimal way. Start to speak to yourself about the benefits of health. List the benefits of health. Research the benefits of a good night's sleep or improved night's sleep. What does that do? And then read that, focus on that, meditate on that. And it's going to increase the likelihood that your thoughts begin to shift more towards optimal regarding sleep. I value sleep. I value my health. I value what I can do to improve my sleep. And so I'm learning about how to improve sleep and improve health. And that's a good place to start, or an optimal, or a better place to start than worst, or to camp out on worst regarding sleep. Have I put you to sleep yet? Talking about what you say about yourself and sleep does influence your experience with sleep. Is everyone awake, or have I put you to sleep? Hey, and if I put you to sleep, maybe this can be a tool. It can be something you listen to over and over again to go to sleep. Hey, whatever you want to use this for. If it's going to improve your sleep, great. My husband cracks up because, and people I tell this to crack up, because my husband likes to go to sleep with me talking. So maybe the first 15 years of our marriage, I saved really important things to talk to him at night about. And that wasn't so optimal because it wasn't the best time to talk to him about these important things. Better would be, in the morning over a cup of coffee, or even better than that would be Saturday after the kids' soccer games when we weren't on the go. For example, it took me 15 years or so to realize that waiting till nighttime when he's super tired, not the best time to talk about what I think is really important while he goes to sleep, because he's tired for good reason. So now I've learned he likes to hear my voice talking while he goes to sleep. So he could play an old podcast or something. But what I do is I talk to him and I brainstorm about things that I'm learning from research, how to apply it for practical use to improve health. Or I talk about a new children's book or an idea or a poem that I've just written I read it out loud, or I process it, talk about it with myself out loud. That's how I kind of creatively brainstorm about things, make connections. And he listens, and he might hear a minute or 5 minutes of it, but he goes to sleep pretty quick. It helps him go to sleep. And I'm fine with that, because I that it helps me to say stuff out loud and process it, talk about it, especially things I'm learning about. And it helps him to go to sleep when I do that. So there you go. So whether you play this podcast over and over again, or a different one to help you go to sleep, kind of like my husband, that's fine with me. If it's a tool for sleep, whatever is going to help you sleep, I'm all for it. Okay. Now, the second S is still. Still. Are we able to be still? Service members, veterans are so used to go, 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 90 to nothing, that sitting still is really hard to do. Most people listening to this podcast, whether they are service members, veterans, or family members of service members and veterans, and we know that the family serves at the front lines at home, and their sacrifice is huge, and their support for service members and veterans is massive and equal to the service and sacrifice that the military willingly does. So is the service and sacrifice that the family members and friends and support system of service members and veterans do as well. And so everybody in this group finds often that it's hard to sit still, because they are so used to serving and taking care of people and doing, sacrificially serving. They're so used to focusing on the external and doing and caring and serving and sacrificing, that actually sitting still is almost like whiplash on the mind, on the emotions, on the self. Sitting still, one, maybe the stillness is a trigger, because it's what usually most quiet before the storm. So quietness can be a trigger, because in other traumatic situations, it was very quiet or still before all crud hit the fan. So stillness and silence can be a trigger in day-to-day life. And if it's not a trigger from a trauma, being still is usually so foreign to what people are used to that it feels uncomfortable. And if something is uncomfortable, we want comfort, or we want what we know. Often the known feels more comfortable than the unknown. And this is why a lot of times, there's talk about being addicted to adrenaline, addicted to the go, I've heard. Well, the adrenaline that's pumping through the system might feel familiar, might feel more empowering, because it's got a bunch of gumption and energy to it, to fight, to survive, to be on the balls of your feet, to be ready to rock and roll. That adrenaline is a familiar feeling surging through the body, but we know it's raising havoc on the body when it's used or exists. It's not like we choose to use it that way, but when it exists at a consistent chronic level in the body. And so there's this desire for peace and stillness and calm, and yet there's anxiety and stress about, how do I even do that? And so practicing stillness is crucially important to learning how to thrive and to improve the content and the quality of your thoughts, your emotions, your emotional experience based on perceived stress, your beliefs about yourself, other people, the world, not just sleep. Because the thoughts that we have, the beliefs that we have during the day, the content and the quality of our thoughts influences our emotional experience during the day, the emotional valiance, the value that we are putting on emotion. Is it a good emotion? Is it a bad emotion? And you know that I am real big on getting away from positive, negative, good, bad. I say that every emotion is an emote that is moving up and out. It's trying to move up within us and give us intel about what we need. Every emotion is unique. Every emotion is telling us and giving us information about what we need in this situation for thriving. So thoughts are influencing our emotions. And then the quality of the emotion, the value of the emotion, the theme of the emotion that we have, or the emotions that we have throughout the day, all of this is going to influence what our brain is then filing and processing and organizing while we sleep. And while we can't control so many things, we can learn to pause, practice being still, pay attention to our breathing, doing the big diaphragmatic breaths in through your nose, and then exhaling through your mouth. And practicing being still, practicing slowing down with our breathing. I've talked about having our thoughts match our breathing. So if we're trying to practice being still, if we're trying to practice diaphragmatic breathing and sitting or standing or lying down when we're doing that, we must get a hold of the content and the quality of our thoughts while we're doing that, because our thoughts, they are the orders that are being sent down from our brain to our gut, to our system, to our body, to our lungs, to our diaphragm, to our cardiovascular system, to our muscles, including the heart. The heart is a muscle. And so we need to choose thoughts that will increase the likelihood that our breathing can be maintained at a more at-rest breathing rate. If I only do the breathing, but I let my mind continue to run amok, do you know what it's going to find? Do you know what it is hardwired to look for? Problems, threats. So if there's not an actual Kodiak bear in front of me, which that would be a super obvious 911, right? But a perceived Kodiak bear in my mind about things that I have dealt with today, that I'm going to deal with tomorrow, or things that I fear will never happen that I want to happen, or things that I fear will happen that I hope never happen. Yeah, did I say that right? Dr. Seuss is showing up again. Thoughts are going to influence the rate of my breathing. I need to not let my mind run amok, because it will find problems to work on solutions for that will keep me at a high perceived level of stress. When I'm trying to sleep, I want to choose thoughts that are going to match the breathing that I desire to maintain. So if I want at-rest breathing, I need at-rest thoughts. Peaceful breathing, calm breathing, parasympathetic breathing, more so than the stress breathing. Then I need to choose a word, a sentence, a thought, a phrase, something to focus on and repeat and meditate on. Meditate, repeat, focus on. I need to choose the word or the thought that I'm going to focus on while I work on at-rest breathing. So I know, for example, I say, I'm doing the best I can with who I am, where I am, and the resources I have. And I am. And we are, right? I mean, we are in the moment, given who we are, where we are, and the resources we have, the knowledge we have, the skills we have, the support we have. We're doing the best we can in the moment. If I say something like that while I'm doing my breathing, that's going to be a lot more optimal and helpful than if I let my mind run amok and find challenges and problems from the past or the current or the future that are wanting to run around in my mind. But I have more chain of command than all the thoughts that run amok. I can't make myself not have a thought, a stressful thought, a tacky thought, a mean thought, rude thought, a defeated thought. I can't snap my fingers and make myself not have thoughts that I don't want to have. Not possible. No one has that kind of magic power, but you can learn to be aware of the content and the quality of your thoughts. Pay attention to them. And if you don't want to pay attention to the current content and the quality of your thoughts, simply choose the topic and the focus and the thought you want to think on. And by default, that is going to be what you think and focus on because you're choosing, you have the choice to focus on that which you want to focus on. No, you don't have the power to make yourself not ever think about difficult things or have difficult, painful thoughts. No, no one has that kind of magic. It's called being a human being, and it's called the human experience that we cannot control all the thoughts that we ever have. However, we can learn to be aware of the content and the quality of our thoughts. We can learn to choose what we want to focus on and then repeat, repeat, repeat. Focus on that. It could be the word peace, breathing in peace, then release. I'm focusing on the word peace and I'm focusing on the word release. You can't have two thoughts at the same time. So whatever thought you choose to focus on and choose to repeat and meditate on, that's the thought that you will continue to focus and meditate on while you're doing that practice. There you go. And that is good enough. That is better than worse, or that is better than doing nothing. Okay. So we need to practice sitting still and letting the silence, the discomfort of not knowing how to sit still. Well, guess what? If I say I don't know how to sit still, and yet I'm sitting here sitting still, apparently I do, because it's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on sitting still. I could say that to myself as I do the breathing. And I know that I'll have different feelings, physical sensations that I might notice, emotions that I might notice. I might notice different sounds that I hear. I might notice that it's uncomfortable sitting still. Okay, I'm still sitting here practicing sitting still. Practice slowing down throughout the day. How about that? So the rate at which you talk, slow it down a little bit. Do you usually sound like you're an auctioneer? Do you speak really fast? Do you speak in a loud tone, in an aggressive tone? Pay attention. Slow down the rate at which you speak. Practice being aware of the tone of your voice. And you don't have to do this perfectly, not a realistic goal. Simply when you notice the tone of your voice, notice it and tone it down if it's needed. If you notice, or when you notice that you are speaking fast, slow down the rate at which you're speaking. And always utilizing your breathing in these moments is going to help you. When you get a hold of your breathing, when you're aware of the rate at which you're breathing, and you check in with your breathing, you can slow down your breathing. When you slow down your breathing, you can slow down your thinking. When you slow down your thinking, you can slow down the rate at which you are speaking. And I am quite certain that when I listen to this podcast, or when you compare this podcast to other podcasts, I already know right now that I am already in this one talking slower and maybe in a more calm tone than the other podcast, because I'm focused on it while I'm talking to you about it. The practice of sitting still, the practice of slowing down. So throughout the day, in the past, I've given you the cue of when you see your favorite, check in with your breathing, take a breath or three. Use that same cue to pay attention to how quickly you're moving. And when you see your favorite color throughout the day, check in with the rate at which you're moving. the rate at which you're speaking, the rate at which you're breathing, and take a breath or three and slow down a step or two or a rate or two in how you speak and how you move and how you breathe. When you practice slowing down throughout the day, it's going to help you then practice sitting still when you go to do your sitting still practice. So at any point, when you're done, it'd be wonderful to take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes, practice sitting still, doing your breathing, and then choosing what you're thinking on while you're doing your breathing. You could listen to a recorded audio of someone taking you through a meditation exercise, a breathing practice on whatever topic you want, on peace, on calm, on rest, on positive affirmations. I mean, I'm not totally against positivity. It's just not my go-to thing, the positive stuff. A lot of times I think it's a positive extreme and I don't think it's realistic. It doesn't really work for me. But hey, positive affirmations, a lot of people like them. I like recordings of affirmations about health, about how the body works and how cells in the body can be healthy and how the body can repair itself. I mean, these are things that I like to listen to. So that relaxes me and it helps me visualize health and healing. Whatever works for you. You can find a recording, listen to it, practice your breathing, let the recording give you the thoughts to think on. You don't have to always come up with them on your own. I love really nice recordings that work for me, and everyone's different. So you have to find a recording that works for you to help you practice sitting still. So we've talked about what we say to ourselves during the day, about ourselves, other people in the world, about our sleep. Our beliefs about our sleep influences our experience of sleep. What we say is very important. Sitting still and practicing sitting still is very important for sleep. Because if we go all day, 90 to nothing, or let's say even if we learn to go between 65 and 80 during the day, all of a sudden stopping and telling ourselves we better go to sleep, now we need to go to sleep. Okay, now I'm done with everything, I can go to sleep. Well, the brain and the body is like, what the helicopter? I mean, it is the equivalent of taking a little kid who is right in the middle of having a grand time with all their toys, and they're really into it. They're making sounds, they're playing, they're doing pretend, they're doing all this stuff. And you literally pick them up, surprise the heck out of them by picking them up, and you go and put them in their bed and say, good night. What kid do you know is going to be okay with that? No way, man. They're going to start, excuse me, but what? And they're going to, probably cry, throw a fit. What about my snack? What about my bath time? What about my story? What about that's going to be quite a shock to the little kid. And it's a shock to the little kid because for good reason. It's also a shock to the brain and the body of the little kid because there was no time to talk about getting ready for bed. So what we say about as we prepare for bed, there was no time to downregulate, to recalibrate. We didn't do the cleanup song and put the toys away. We didn't have our snack, talk about what we're going to have about our bedtime snack. We didn't say things about the book we're going to read, the PJs we're going to choose, the stuffed animals. We didn't say what stuffed animals we were going to get. So all of this talking, all of this getting ready for bed for a young child is saying things about sleep. It is saying things about what we do to prepare for sleep. And it helps the brain and the body downregulate and get ready for sleep. We all get that. We all do all that cool, fun stuff for kids. And my kids were little clever geniuses. And of course, I love books. And so I was easy to convince that, 3 is better than 1 and 5 is better than 3. And, how many books did we read before we fell asleep? And I fell asleep in my day clothes reading books to them often. I think I slept in my day clothes more than pajamas from my 20s and my 30s, honestly, raising the kids, working and going to school after I got out of the Air Force. I do have pajamas now, actual pajamas. And I take the time to let myself get ready for bed, to try to down regulate. And I'm aware that what I say to myself during the day, what I say to myself about sleep, and practicing sitting still is key to being able to sleep. If you think about a car, you don't drive a car at 100 miles an hour and then slam on the brakes and say good night. I mean, one, that car's not going to last very long, right? We begin to slow down, give them the context. And when we pull into the driveway, when we pull into the garage or under the carport, we are going slower, slower, and slower. And then we stop at a reasonable rate so that the car and everything around the car lasts longer. And yet, when it comes to the brain and the body, when it comes to ourselves and sleep, we often think that we should be able to just go to sleep. Nope. One, that's a should statement. So we should all over ourselves about sleep, and it decreases the likelihood that we're going to sleep. And we can do something though. We can get a hold of what we say to ourselves during the day, be aware of our emotions during the day, our breathing during the day, what we need during the day, the rate at which we walk and talk and move and breathe and think. We can be aware. When we see our favorite color in between tasks, we can use these as cues to not only cue in with our breathing, but our thinking, our emotions, and what we're thinking and saying to ourselves about the importance and the value of sleep. And I would say I would like to encourage you not to worry about sleep, but then I just said the word worry and I planted a seed about worrying about sleep. Well, I won't take all the blame because it's probably been a challenge, and this isn't the first time you've worried about sleep or had negative thoughts about sleep. But rather than say don't worry about sleep, let's move towards optimal and say, what do you want for your sleep? What is the value of sleep? What are the health benefits of sleep? Think on those things. Think on how good it will feel to improve sleep, and do what you can and think about what you can do to improve sleep. Listening to this podcast might just put you to sleep. It might be your new go-to sleep tool. I don't know, but that's fine with me. It won't hurt my feelings. We're literally slowing down in the optimal response initiative. Slowing down to consider things maybe we've never considered before, and how intricately they are connected to all areas of health, quality of life, and sleep. Sleep is a foundational tool. It's a foundational marker for health because it impacts everything. It really does. It impacts every area of health. It impacts our ability to concentrate the next day. It impacts our ability to regulate emotions. It impacts our ability to tolerate stress, which is a request for energy. And there's a lot of requests for energy throughout the day. Have you ever noticed that if you don't have decent sleep, you're more hungry than before? Or maybe it suppresses your appetite. I don't know. Which way does it go for you? I get really hungry. I don't even eat pizza. I feel like I could eat 5 pizzas when I have enough sleep. And then what does not enough sleep do to your physical body? What does it do to chronic pain? So a lot of people deal with chronic pain. Chronic pain being there's pain in the body and it's from an old injury. It doesn't mean we need to go get something taken care of. We don't have a broken arm. We need to go to the emergency room and get it taken care of. It's not an acute injury. It's a chronic pain injury So there's nothing to do to fix it. It's something that is part of our existence that we deal with on a consistent basis. And the ebb and flow of those pain signals, I think I've mentioned before, but if not, when we tense up, when we have a chronic pain signal, that chronic pain signal fights harder to travel through the body. It's trying to travel through the body. It's trying to do what it does, saying, hey, I'm here, I exist. I'm from an old wound. There's nothing to do, but I'm here. And it's trying to kind of travel through the body like a leaf on the river or on the water. When we try to dam up or clench up and stop that pain signal, it just fights harder to get through, and then it hurts worse. So breathing through the pain signal and allowing it to travel helps. There's some kind of bug in my office here. Helps the pain signal travel and do the ebb and flow that it does, so that it's less intense or less painful. So it's important to be aware of that and do what we can about that. But when you haven't had sufficient or good quality sleep, have you noticed that your chronic pain hurts like the dickens? I mean, you wake up from a bad night's sleep or little sleep, inefficient sleep, all of the above. And I don't know about you, but my left leg is like screaming at me. I'm like, really? Seriously? Yeah. So I can tell how my sleep is going by how my left leg is behaving or speaking to me or cussing at me or something. And so I've learned that learning what I can about what I can do about my sleep is crucially important to, my chronic pain that I manage and deal with, but all areas of health, my ability to concentrate, to be creative, to do enjoyable things, to want to do enjoyable things or not. It's going to be highly, highly, highly influenced by my sleep. So doing what we can about our sleep is crucially important to optimizing our health and our quality of life. So what can you do? You can be aware of thoughts, and you can speak to yourself and about sleep in a way that's going to move you towards optimal. What can you do about sitting still? You can practice slowing down during the day. When you realize you're going 90 to nothing, simply realize it, because you just did, and then utilize your skills to slow down. Acknowledge your breathing, take some breaths to recalibrate, be aware of your current emotional state. What emotion is it? What is it telling you that you need? And we're going to get into emotions more in the future. It's in chapter 10 and 11 in the Optimal Response Initiative workbook, if you have it. We're going to get into that more later, but I like to talk about the importance of emotions. Simply be aware and try to acknowledge what's the emotional state that you're in. And if it's anger and anxiety, ask yourself what's under the anger or anxiety. Or, any synonym of anger, any synonym of anxiety. What is under that emote? What are the other emotes? Because we can get out of oscillating between fight and flight mode, survival mode, anger and anxiety. If we're in a thriving situation, that's not going to be super helpful to only stay in an angry or anxious state. There are other emotes under that are trying to move up and give us intel about what we need. Do we need to be heard? We want to hear what we're saying to ourselves first. We need to be heard by ourselves first, not by someone else who, one, maybe doesn't know how to listen, or two, doesn't care to listen, or three, maybe they're trying to listen, but they're not us. They are not going to be able to 100% understand what it's like to be us. And so we need, even though they may want to, right? If we're standing in front of an apple tree and we're asking that healthy apple tree for an orange, it might really want to give us an orange, but it's an apple tree. So it could try all day and it cannot give us an orange. So this is the importance of learning to listen to yourself, learning to be heard by yourself, and being aware of what you say to yourself, the content and the quality of your thoughts, your emotions, what you need, and being able to sit still is crucially important to be able to pay attention to and sit with self. Have you ever thought that maybe being so busy on the go, that maybe we might be trying to avoid self? are all the thoughts or the emotions we have within ourselves. And if we stay really busy, can we really outrun ourselves? Can we really avoid ourselves all the time? No, because sleeping requires sitting still. So if we don't know how to sit still because we haven't practiced, we haven't had the training, no one's ever challenged us to sit still. They just say, slow down, calm down, chill out. That's not helpful. That just ticks you off, right? Not helpful. But learning to sit still with ourselves, sitting still and practice. Okay, I think it's just disconnected on Melody, so hopefully it's back. So sitting still is crucially important. Practicing the discomfort of sitting still and getting used to it. Getting used to the discomfort of sitting still is going to help you be able to sleep. And then what you say to yourself about sitting still, what you say to yourself about sleep, what you say to yourself if you wake up with chronic pain or a nightmare, this is going to influence the degree to which you're going to be able to go back to sleep. And even if you don't go back to sleep, the degree to which you're going to be able to rest. And sitting still and resting is important, and it's better than not. If you can't make yourself go to sleep, but you can't just snap your fingers and make yourself go to sleep, you can work on resting, which can increase the likelihood that you'll go to sleep. But your breathing, your thinking, your ability to relax and rest your body and your muscles, releasing some of that tension, is going to be crucially important to helping you then sleep. Sleep is a wonderful thing. It impacts all areas of health, and you can do something about your current state of sleep. You can be aware of your thoughts. You can be aware of your emotions. And if they're not moving you towards optimal, you can do something about that. You can choose something to focus on that helps your thinking continue to move towards optimal, which is then going to influence your emotional experience. You can be aware of the emotions and ask yourself, what is this emote telling me that I need in this moment? It might be that you need to breathe. It might mean a lot of things, but breathing is a good place to start to recalibrate. And then practice sitting still, because if we get better at slowing down throughout the day, as we notice, we can practice sitting still. And we need to choose to practice sitting still. I've talked before about breathing for 10 minutes while matching the thinking with the breathing during the day. Well, guess what? If you've been doing that, you're already practicing sitting still while you do that. So keep doing that, but then do it more with the emphasis on, I'm practicing sitting still, because sitting still and being still and getting used to slowing down and being still is going to help me sleep more optimally. It's going to increase the likelihood that my health improves. the health of my thoughts, the health of my emotion, my emotional health, my physical health. Yes, and sleep impacts my physical health, my emotional health, my thinking health. All of this is going to impact my social health, my spiritual health. It's all connected. Stress is a request for energy, anywhere from 1 to 100, for example. So my perceptions, my beliefs, my thoughts, my opinions I have about myself, my situation during the day is going to influence the thoughts I have about my ability to sleep. And I can do something, I can be proactive about this. So, has this been a super boring podcast? Then use it for a sleeping tool to go to sleep. Use it as a reminder to remind yourself to slow down and think about the health benefits of sleep, because sleep is going to impact every area of health and quality of life. And it is something that you can do something about. The 80%, when we talk about the 80-20, 80% is all that stuff I can't control. People, places, things. I mean, I can't even control and make myself not have a thought. I can't control chronic pain or old injuries, current chronic pain. I can't make that not exist. I can't snap my fingers and make that go from 70 to 10 or 10 to 2. Not possible. However, I can do what I can about these areas of health. And taking the time to practice and train to sit still, to slow down, I can do that. And yeah, is it uncomfortable? Sure. Does it feel better to be go, go, go with adrenaline pumping and being busy, 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 busy and doing things and being productive? And well, does it feel better, or is it just what we're used to? And are we tired of being tired and tired of being on the go? And so we're trying to figure out how to slow down and thrive. That would be the answer, right? Trying to figure out how to slow down and thrive. So we're not going to be able to get good at slowing down and get used to sitting still physically and cognitively. So, have you thought about the fact that when you slow down physically, so you sit still in your physical body, that doesn't mean that your mind automatically stops, that your thoughts stop. In fact, if I'm used to being on the go, 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 90 to nothing, and I just all of a sudden sit still, you know what my thoughts are going to do? Hey, Sergeant, what's up? What's going on? We got a situation. I mean, that's like an immediate trigger, like whoop, whiplash. And my thoughts are going to be like, hey, what's happening? We got a situation. If I was my mind talking, my brain talking, my thoughts talking, my body talking, my systems talking, and they're all communicating with one another, right? We are a whole person here with a mind, with physiology, with we are humans that our sleep impacts the quality of how our body works and how our thinking works. Our nutrition impacts the quality of how our body works and our thinking works, our emotions. It's all connected. It is all connected. So when I am used to being on the go, my mind, my body is used to just go, 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 and I all of a sudden stop. That's like an immediate trigger to be like, hey, we got a situation. Is there a Kodiak bear somewhere? What's going on? What's going on? Well, then I just go back into adrenaline mode. But wait a minute, I'm trying to figure out how to slow down. So recognizing that sitting still and slowing down is going to maybe be pretty anxiety provoking initially. Maybe it's going to be like a trigger that I need to do something different. I need to be busy. I can't be sitting here. I need to be doing something. Oh, well, Dr. Seymour from the Optimal Response Initiative told me this would probably happen. And I actually need to and want to practice sitting still to improve my health and my sleep. So choose what you want to think about with your sleep this week. Choose the emotions that you'd like to experience when you sleep: peace, calm, relaxed, relief. And no, you can't snap your fingers and feel those emotions, but you can choose to focus on those words. And the more you focus on those words, which are words that describe an emotional feeling, you're going to increase the likelihood that you might experience more of that emotion as you're going to sleep, as you're sitting still, as you're slowing down throughout the day. There's a lot of cool research on sleep lately. Of course, Dr. Andrew Huberman's lab is my favorite podcast, and he interviews a lot of amazing researchers who are finding out really cool things about sleep. One of the things about sleep is that we want to have a set time that we go to sleep and that we get up. We want to have some kind of schedule because we have these circadian rhythms. We have every cell in our body has a clock, and it is optimized when we have structure and we have consistency. So we want to go to sleep around the same time, and we want to get up around the same time consistently. The very first bout of sleep that we have, the very first sleep cycle of all the stages of sleep, is about 95 or maybe 105 minutes, ranging in there. And the brain and body goes through an entire sleep cycle. And we have like 4.5 to 5 of those a night. It's 90 minutes are usually the sleep cycle, but the very first one is longer, a little bit longer, 105 minutes or so, give or take. So the very first sleep cycle needs to be at the same time every night, around the same time, give or take, 15, 30 minutes, around the same time, between 10:30 and 11. If that's your normal, regular sleep time, then that's the time you want to be in bed and going to sleep consistently. If it's 9, fine. If it's between 11 and 12, whatever your regular going to bed time is, that's what time you want to go to bed. That first sleep cycle is literally when the train leaves the station. So to optimize sleep for thriving, for health and quality of life, the train, that first sleep cycle, is going to leave the station at the same time, give or take 15, 30 minutes, every time. So when you're trying to show up to thriving territory in your life and health, and you're really committed to focus on getting a hold of your sleep, you want to get to the train station for thriving, for going to sleep, at the same time, because the very first sleep cycle, about 105 minutes, goes through all the stages of sleep, 1 through 4. I want to say 4, but I think there's 5. But first and second stages are kind of the lighter and transitional stages. We get into big slow wave sleep, which is the deepest sleep, and we get into REM sleep. New research is showing that the slow wave deep sleep is deeper than REM sleep. In the slow wave deep sleep, we cannot move because our muscles are rejuvenating and replenishing and getting, they're recalibrating in the way that they need to. This is why when we wake up, maybe we don't have the strength that we had in our, hands, for example, when we went to sleep. But the body, the muscles needs to physically rejuvenate. REM sleep, there can be a lot of vivid dreams and movement, physical movement. So there's all these different cycles of sleep, and the body goes through these cycles of sleep 4.5, 5 times a night. And dependent on other factors that we're doing throughout the day, our thinking, our emotional state, our nutrition, our hydration, level of cardiovascular or social interactions, cardiovascular work, whether we work out or do physical therapy or walk stairs or walk or do what we can physically. In a wheelchair, we can do what we can with arms, or if we're doing what we can during the day in all these areas of health, physical training or physical therapy or both, our nutrition, our water intake, what else are we putting in the body? All this is going to impact our sleep, and it's going to impact how long we are staying in these different areas of sleep. Sometimes what can happen when someone is stuck in a chronic state of stress, of survival mode, it's like the brain and the body might dip down very quickly into the slow wave sleep or the REM sleep, but it doesn't stay there long enough for the brain and the body to really get the benefit of those stages of sleep. And we can talk more about the stages of sleep in another podcast. Right now, this podcast, I'm trying to bore you to sleep as a tool for sleep, but just kidding, kind of. But I am literally giving you the practice of slowing down in this podcast. That's what we're doing. And it's even strange for me, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. But talking a little bit about what we do throughout the day, our nutrition, our exercise, our movement, our water intake, our social interactions or lack of quality of our social interactions or lack of quality interactions. All these variables are going to influence our sleep experience and to what degree we are in these stages of sleep, the efficiency of the sleep. Okay. So when someone is stuck in a chronic state of survival mode and stress, what can happen is the brain and the body stays more in the lighter stages of sleep and doesn't get what it needs in the deeper stages of sleep. So we want to do what we can to increase the likelihood that the brain and the body is able to get the full benefit of all stages of sleep at the most efficient amount, at the highest efficiency in all those stages of sleep. And going back to what I said about the train leaving the station, that very first cycle of sleep, the first 105 minutes of your sleep schedule, your sleep pattern. If you go to bed between 9 and 10 and you know that, falling asleep between 9:30, that's what's most optimal for you, then you want to go to bed and be going to sleep between 9:30 consistently, because that train is going to leave the station between 9 and 9:30. And after that, it's gone. So if we miss the first sleep cycle, that first 105 minutes, there are things that happen in the brain and the body that we do not get, even though we go to sleep. Like, so let's say, oh, whatever, I'm going to sleep at 11, I'm going to sleep at 12, I'm going to sleep at 10. I mean, it's just all over the place. Well, we missed that first 105 minutes and all the benefits of that. Yeah, you sleep whatever you sleep, 4 hours, 5 hours. But if you don't have the consistent going to bedtime and waking up time, the initial sleep cycle has left the thriving train station and we don't get it back. And what happens is we can build up a deficiency in our cognitive abilities. There's a buildup of cognitive deficiency when we don't get not only the quality of sleep we need, the quantity of sleep we need, but when we don't get the first cycle of sleep we need, it builds up cognitive deficiency. I don't know about you, but when I haven't had the sleep I need, it's really hard to think. It's like I can literally feel my thoughts, like trying to connect to the next thought, and then it just drops in the abyss of the synapse. Um, you can feel the difference, right? So today, the goal was to talk about the 3 S's of sleep. What we say to ourselves affects our sleep, and we can do something about that. Sitting still, and the practice of sitting still, slowing down throughout the day, and all the other tools that I've given you before now are tools to help you slow down, to thrive, to recalibrate. All of that stuff, doing that during the day can help you slow down to practice then officially sitting still. And if you've been doing the 10 minutes of breathing that I've talked about before, getting a hold of a thought that matches the breathing that you're working on, you can get better and better at slowing down, sitting still, and doing breathing, which then is going to help prepare you to improve your sleeping. If we go 90-0, and we expect ourselves to lay our physical body down and to just stop thinking about stuff and go to sleep and then have wonderful dreams or no dreams, no nightmares, and wake up feeling fabulous, that is like expecting a 2-year-old who's all into their toys and what they're doing and having a blast. It's like expecting them to, just pick them up and put them down and say goodnight. That's not happening. They're gonna throw a fit. And our brain and our body throws a fit too when we do that to it. And yet we do that, and we have done that because we didn't know how to slow down. We didn't know what we could do. And we didn't know that all the stuff we do during the day, including what we eat, what we drink, what we don't eat, what we don't drink, how we think, if we get a hold of our thinking, how our emotional experiences, and whether we're aware of it or not, whether we're managing our emotions or our emotions are managing us, our opinions and beliefs about ourselves, other people in the world, our situation. And yes, our opinions and beliefs, what we say to ourselves about our sleep, impacts our sleep. And you can do something about that. So the 3 S's of sleep: say, still, sleep. Prioritize your sleep. The third one is sleep, and we've talked about sleep enough to put you to sleep. So on that note, next week I will talk more about the stages of sleep and some of the cool new research and science about how to really get a hold of that, what the implications are regarding health, regarding attention, memory, concentration, creativity, our ability to be creative. Problem solving is creativity, but then there's the fun creativity too. So sleep is going to influence all of that. I'm going to talk about the physiology of that. And so that's going to be maybe more fun and exciting than this podcast that was meant to talk about the 3 S's of sleep, and maybe even be a tool for you to utilize to put yourself to sleep. I will read you one thing from ORI real quick. Let's slow down. Let's not be so fast. In chapter 9 of the Optimal Response Initiative, I'm talking about external control, being focused on people, places, and things, and reacting to all the things we can't control. Operating from an external location of control is not optimal, because then we are constantly a victim to all the things we can't control, and fighting all the things we can't control, trying to control them. And then that just makes us more angry and more stressed out. What we're trying to do is operate from an internal location of control, which is all the stuff we're doing in the Optimal Response Initiative, ORI. Learning to operate from within, what I know, what I need, what I believe, boundaries, having a foundation of health, having a foundation of skills and understanding and awareness, and yes, having a foundation of optimal sleep is key to being able to operate more from an internal location of control, responding to the things in my day-to-day life versus reacting, knee-jerk reacting. Okay, so doing what we can is part of a huge part of this. In chapter 9, external and internal location control, that's the title, that's the section. There's a thing in here called Dr. S's Good Nightmare Pass. And this is a powerful tool. I do need to record it so that you don't have to turn a light on and read it, because that's going to mess up some of the melatonin levels and wake us up more than we need to be woken up when we're trying to go back to sleep. So ideally, it would be a recording, a nice, relaxing, boring recording. And so I can work on getting that to you. This is Dr. S's Good Nightmare Pass. In this, there is rescripting. There are sentences in here that they are thoughts, my thoughts, that I came up with to say to a nightmare, to tell the nightmare that I'm in charge. It is not. So these are things that you can say to yourself, but you're saying it to the nightmare and letting the nightmare know that you're in charge. It's not. Okay. So this is part of what we say to ourselves about sleep. Specifically, this is what we say to a nightmare to recalibrate and being more in an empowered place after the nightmare. So what we say, there's rescripting in here. What we say, there's some progressive muscle relaxation in here to tense up some of the areas of muscles in the body from the toes all the way to the head, and then release. So we're gathering tension and we're releasing it for the body. Because if I told you to just release the tension in your body, that would sound very, foo-foo, magical, weird stuff, and no one's going to come back and listen to what Dr. S has to say. But if you gather up the tension and then release it, you can notice the sensations of the release of that tension. You can't just release tension. If we could just release, like, boom, release all the tension, I mean, I'd be like one session wonder, right? And no one would have muscle tension. It's not that simple. So we want to gather it and then release it. There's breathing practice in here, diaphragmatic breathing. There's some grounding practice. And grounding, I mean, simply grounding yourself to your physical environment, paying attention to what is in your environment and describing it, describing the room where you are. It's reminding the brain and the body, which is you, where you are in this current space and time, presently, in your home, in your room, safe, whatever year it is, whatever day it is, you're in your room. You're not in the nightmare. You're not in the trauma. You're not in the nightmare. Okay. So it's helping the mind and the body recalibrate to where you currently are right now in your physical environment. So that's what I call grounding to your physical environment. There's a little exposure work. If there's sadness about something that happened or somebody that was lost. Exposure meaning we're acknowledging that instead of stuffing it. The more we stuff something and try to act like we're not sad or it's not there, the more it builds tension and increases the likelihood that we're going to have another nightmare or, more distress while we're trying to go to sleep, or another nightmare, or more distress the next day. If that nightmare dictates the content and the quality of my thoughts, my emotions, and my behaviors, not only when I wake up, but all the next day or all that day, then that nightmare is managing me. I'm not managing it. The stuff I've been through is managing me. I'm not managing it. So this is what we can do to flip that and talk to ourselves in a way and remind ourselves, our brain, our body, ourselves, that we are where we are now and it is not then. And we are sad about what has occurred and the losses. Acknowledging that helps release some of that pressure. If we stuff it and don't acknowledge the loss and the sadness, it builds more pressure and it increases the likelihood of more nightmares. So it has some exposure work, some bringing it up work in it, because it's obviously there. That's why there's the nightmare. So let's acknowledge what is there. We don't have to light a candle to it for the next hour or 5 hours or 10. But let's acknowledge it. Let's acknowledge what is there, because acknowledging what is there is going to help bring some relief from the tension and the pressure that is there from it. And while we can't change what has happened, we can't magically make ourselves not have a nightmare, we can acknowledge it, which is going to increase the likelihood that we get relief from it instead of stuffing it. Okay, so it's got a little bit of exposure work in it because we're acknowledging the facts here. And it's got a little humor because humor can always help if we use it in an optimal way. Okay, so Dr. S's good nightmare fast. This is what we say to ourselves and to the nightmare after we have a nightmare. I had a nightmare, now what? Well, I'm about to tell you. I will no longer allow you, nightmare, to continue to kick my butt for the rest of the night or morning, trying to convince me that you're real. Now, true, you are coming from a real place and time that happened in history, and I wish to blank it never had. In fact, I wish my loved ones were still here, or that the injustices and suffering were never allowed to invade my life in space and time. But it's not that simple. It can't be undone with wishing, praying, fishing, or even considering pissing my life away. And I wish the anger, the fight, and the anxiety, the flight or flee of PTSD wasn't trying to kick my butt on a daily and nightly basis, but it is trying. Well, actually, my mind is trying to make sense of the senseless. It wants relief from this pain. Shoot, man, I want relief from this pain. But pain exists because I love and care. I don't get upset about people and things I don't give a damn about. And the fact that my loved one or so and so is gone makes me want to scream and shout. Listen, nightmare, you exist because of what I have been through. But you will no longer convince me that I am still there. I am here, and my current pain is evidence that I love and care beyond measure for people and causes who represent the betterment of all. So listen to me, nightmare. I see you, I got your number, but you will not have mine. Yes, this is a rhyme, but I'm taking back my time, my freedom, and my purpose. I will breathe and release that which hurts beyond measure over and over again. I will never stop adapting and moving through this process of constant overcoming. And I will remind myself and you that I am here right now. And my response to you will forever now be reading you this rhyme to set you straight, no matter how early or how late, or how many times I need to remind you and read you this rhyme. This night, this day, this time is mine. I am free from you. I am here. I am in my room, in my house. I can describe the room to you. I can tell you all that I see and hear, all that I feel and touch. I can tense up my toes and gradually release. I can then tense up my calves and then relax. I can tense up my thighs and then gradually release, envisioning the word peace, like a cloud as I breathe it in and out. I can tense the muscles in my behind and keep breathing and reading you this rhyme. And then move to my stomach and tighten my six pack. Don't laugh, it's there. I'm making a comeback. I can clench my fists and count to 5 and then release, which reminds me I'm alive. I can tense up my forearms like I'm damn Popeye and then release the tension, letting it float up to the sky and say, bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. And by the way, I'm talking to you when I do. I can inhale huge, filling my diaphragm, allowing the oxygen to span the entire distance of my body. And then raise my shoulders as much as I can to my ears, pulling together the tension and imagining you like a vapor evaporating into thin air. I can clench my teeth, counting to 3, and then releasing, noticing my jaw, repositioning itself for rest. I can raise my eyebrows to my hairline and say with determination, this space and time is mine as I exhale. Do you want me to now describe every detail of this safe and comfortable place in which I now sit? I can if you want, but you'd probably think such a conversation was boring as. So you're welcome to leave because I've rolled down my sleeves, no longer fighting with you. I'm committing to not only fighting to merely survive, I will thrive right now, tomorrow, and the next day. because those whom I have loved and will forever love deserve at least that much from me and would want that much for me. So, nightmare, I will take the price that has been paid and I will pay it forward over and over again with every ounce of me, and I won't let them down. Over and out. Peace out. Breathe and repeat. Breathe and repeat. Breathe and repeat until you go back to sleep. So there you go. Dr. S's good nightmare pass. Utilizing a lot of different thriving tools, some which you have learned about, incorporating all of them in a tool for you to focus on the 3 S's for sleep. First one being what you say. Second one, the importance of practicing sitting still. And the third one being the third S of the 3 S's, which is sleep. So on that note, I'm going to say to all of you, I hope you have a good week. I hope you sleep well. And I hope you stay alert, stay alive, and stay alert, stay alive, and thrive. I'll see you next week.